First run today in the Salomon Ultra Glide 4. Actually, first run outside for me today in maybe about a week. I've been on the shelf for a little bit here. I'll get to that later though. The Ultra Glide might be a model that fell off the radar for some of you, especially in the US. We did not get version 3 stateside. It was released in Europe. I did test the Ultra Glide 2 though, but that was pre-relief sphere, so completely different shoe there. Actually even completely different geometry naturally, so I kind of want to lean into some first impressions on this run. Again, I'm kind of sort of recovering here, so I'm trying to keep it light, trying to keep it easy. I don't want to get too crazy as far as technical running. Maybe a little up and down. Talk about the shoe itself, a lot about the upper, a lot about the general feel of the shoe, and maybe one or two comparisons that I think or just came to mind when I first slipped the shoe on. Ultra Glide 4 will be available on January 1st for $150, what I think is a very good price point for this type of shoe. Stack heights listed at 41.35, matching the S-Lab Ultra Glide that I have. I do have version 1, not 1.5. Version 2 will be coming out, I believe, in February. Just ran into a couple of humble runners out on the trail. Grant and Phil said they were just watching the race video. It's always interesting. I had never met them before. I know a lot of runners out here, and of course people know I do this kind of YouTube thing, but it is always interesting and I don't know, sometimes a little startling to meet people that you don't know in real life that are watching the videos. So very cool. They're calling the midsole foam energy foam, but it does say opti foam on the midsole itself. Salomon, very confusing here. Can't seem to clarify that opti foam, energy foam plus. Is it the same thing? Energy foam plus is certainly different. Super critical variation, but the other ones can't really seem to distinguish what's what. Tech sheets say one thing, and then the shoe itself usually tends to say the opposite, which is a little strange. Needless to say, it is a 6mm drop. That does feel accurate to me on the run here. A little bit of elevation in the heel. Good support under the middle of the shoe, under the arch there. Nothing crazy, nothing jutting up into your arch. It overall feels like a very nice and smooth contour throughout the underside of the foot. You do have those relief spheres, kind of giving you a sense of undulating pressure. I find it very similar in feel, even now, just on this first run here, compared to Ultra Glide version 1. The one sphere that I feel the most is the one that is kind of situated at the base of the big toe, just ahead of the forefoot. There's a little dimple or depression there, and that's the one I notice kind of compressing as I'm going into my toe off. But other than that, I don't know, it's like to describe. It doesn't have that flat feeling of like a regular kind of midsole, but it's not like you feel all these bumps poking up all over your feet. It's nothing like that if you're perhaps worried about that. Maybe now's a good time to talk about the traction. I mentioned the feel underfoot. Feeling a little bit different, a little bit contoury. You know, the shoe seems to morph a little bit to the ground, allow your foot in different areas to kind of press or sink in, hard to put the words to it, into the midsole itself and then furthermore into the ground. But one thing that's notable is the outsole, perhaps lack of lugs in certain areas underneath the shoe. With this kind of relief sphere setup, I guess you can't really put those lugs on the depressions, the one that are going up into the foot and off the ground. They kind of have to be on the parts that are lower, so the lugs will be in more direct contact with the ground, maybe somewhat along the edges of those kind of protruding areas of the outsole. The rubber is Salomon's traditional Conta grip. I do feel like it's a bit softer. It feels a bit tackier than previous versions that I've run in. Hard to make a judgment on grip. Obviously wet grip, I can't do that at this particular moment, but heading up the hill there, despite the lack of lugs, with those relief spheres, kind of undulating setup of the midsole and outsole, I find that it kind of warps and compresses contours around stuff underfoot, and I find it's a easy traction on climbs with this shoe. I don't notice really any loss of traction. Again, I have to test this shoe out in more rugged conditions. It's windy and cold out here today. Again, dealing with a little bit of injury. It's a back thing, so I have to be a little careful of the impact, especially downhill here is going to be a little tricky, so I'll have to take it easy. As I'm heading back down here, I will say about the upper, I'm going to look at the details when I get back, but Foothold is really good in this shoe. Much better than the $250 S Ultra Glide version 1. Now again, version 2 Matrix upper is coming out in a month or so, so that's probably going to be a different story, but compared to the version I have back at the van right now, this one at $100 less holds the foot just way, way better. They went with more, I would say, what you would call traditional, cheaper padding in this one. Not that kind of fancier S-Lab setup they had in version 1, and it just holds the foot way, way better. When I do the close-up, you'll see what I'm talking about. The tongue is just, it's thicker, it's more well padded. I don't think it's heavier even. I just think it's kind of lighter and a cushier setup than the thinner, supposedly more premium tongue/booty setup in that S-Lab version. But this one, once the quick laces grab into that tongue, it just locks it on top of my foot, and no foot sliding at all, which was the big problem in that S-Lab version for me. I found that the tongue just slid, moved around a bit, and even my foot inside the shoe, I just never felt like my foot was comfortably stable in that shoe. So with this one here, totally locked down. They also changed some of the padding around the heel. Now, I'm talking about this in comparison to the S-Lab Ultra Glide. Again, the version 3 of the shoe, same relief spheres, different upper. That model was not available in the US, so never got the chance to run in that one. I can't say if this one is much different or improved over version 3, but it's definitely better than that one I have. And I have run in the Ultra Glide 2. Version 2 didn't have the relief spheres. I felt like they were still leaning into that real rocker platform with Ultra Glide 1 and 2, and they've gone away from that here. Got the relief spheres, feels like a more regular 6mm drop without that kind of rounded feel underfoot that I thought was too prominent in version 2. So again, I like the Foothold of version 2. I feel like this one's kind of close in that regard, but overall, upper comfort, foothold, and security is the best in this regular version 3 than any of the Ultra Glides I've run in so far. You can see me moving down that hill there. I'm really liking the geometry for that grade of descent, kind of moderate, light. 6mm just seemed very cruisy. I felt very comfortable running down there. Actually, my back is feeling much better. I'm not really sure if it's the shoes or what, but feeling much better than I expected to out on the run. So shoes are not a detriment, at least. I am actually going to head down there. Maybe dance around some rocks a little bit, which I wasn't planning on today, but feeling good, so let's just go with it. I'm not going to dig too much into stability today. just because I know I'm trying to keep my feet under me a little bit more, trying to be a little more stable, and generally I don't want to get on edge with the shoes or particularly my body today. Now I do have a US 9.5 here. Salomon is one of the brands where I more often than not go with a US 9.5 as opposed to a half size up US 10. It's not a wide fit here. It has that kind of Salomon narrow shape, or I should say the look of a narrow shape, but honestly I'm not feeling squeeze at all when I lace them up. I kept the lower section a little bit loose, and then I cinched up the quick lace quite a bit at the top, as I like to do, but I don't find any narrowness at the forefoot at all. I actually think the width that it's at the forefoot is really helpful in feeling secure out here. I have a good positive feel about the upper material itself wrapping around my foot. Oh, okay, be careful. Oh. That was good. I also don't feel any of that Salomon pinching around the pinky toe, at least not yet. I think that was something, or I think that is something that I would typically detect right away in Salomon shoes when they do have that narrowness at the toes. But I'm not feeling it at all right now. I'm about an hour in. So that bodes well for comfort in this shoe at a very secure true to size here. Another important note about the Ultra Glide 4 here is the weight. 10.2 ounces in my US 9.5. That is very good for 41.35 underfoot. Again, just for reference, that S Lab Ultra Glide version 1, that one comes in at 10.7 ounces, half ounce heavier, which I did think was quite disappointing for that shoe when it came out. That shoe will certainly drop some weight in version 2 with the Matrix upper, but how much exactly is to be seen. Without having this shoe on foot, without weighing and testing this one as I am today, I would expect if that shoe came in at, say, 10.2 ounces, 10 ounces in version 2, I would be prepared to say that would be a win for that shoe. But seeing as this one is 10.2, I don't know, I'm not sure how much more they could drop going to Matrix upper there. I mean, if they, like I said, if it came in at 10 to 10.2 in my size, I would call that pretty good. And you're at 10.2 here, so certainly a good value for 150 US. The one shoe that is a non-Salomon shoe that first came to mind when I put on this shoe as a comparable shoe is the Merrell MTL Adapt Matrix. Interestingly enough, I have that shoe weighed in at exactly 10.2 ounces, exactly the same down to the gram as the Ultra Glide 2 here. That shoe does have a Matrix upper, but I do find similar levels of foothold as I'm finding in this Ultra Glide 4 here. Just not an overly wide fit at the forefoot. Kind of has that very same just wide enough fit where it doesn't squeeze too much, but also holds the foot very well. Again, I have that one in the US 9.5 too, interestingly enough. So those two shoes, clear competitors in my mind. On foot, I expected them to feel a bit the same. Actually, I expected the Ultra Glide to feel similar in terms of ride and geometry as the Merrell. But now that I'm going on a little bit of an extended run here in these, they do feel a little bit different underfoot. Less of that noticeable rocker up by the toes, more of a gradual geometry, gradual roll with the Ultra Glide 4 here. Kind of feel like, feels a little smoother. Do have more stack underfoot with the Merrell though. I think it is 43, so a little bit more foam there. I think even under the forefoot also feels like a little bit more cush there with the Merrell, but then again, it's relying on that rocker at the front to turn all that foam over. All right, so let's take a look at a couple options here. This is the new Ultra Glide 4. This is the original S-Lab Ultra Glide version 1. This is not the 1.5. Version 2 coming out again in February. Take a look at this heel first of all. This is something they did update in version 1.5. No other updates, so I didn't get to run in that shoe. I definitely noticed this being unnecessarily high. Talked about that in my original reviews. But I never got around to testing it. I just felt like the main issue with this shoe was this tongue here kind of just moving around, not being very well held. It's just smooth on the interior. I felt like my foot was sliding inside of the shoe and the tongue was kind of just like bunching and moving around a lot here. So maybe perhaps a little weird to be comparing a expensive $250 shoe here with a regular $150 shoe, but it is what it is. This heel is definitely an improvement over this one. No issues at all on my run. Didn't feel it. Definitely notice it right away when you're running in this shoe. Just take a quick look inside there at the padding too. Similar setup in the way that this is kind of tall inside, wrapping around. I felt like heel hold was okay in this shoe. It was more the issue around the tongue in the front of the shoe. You have a similar kind of setup here. Look how wide or deep that ring of cushioning, and it goes all the way in the rear and then all the way around the other side. And again, this is cut short. This kind of proves my point that sometimes I get these shoes where they have this sticking up. Puma Deviate Nitro Elite Trail is another one. It's just completely unnecessary. Like they could literally, I don't know how low version 1.5 is, but look how low you could go in comparison and get a better heel hold in this shoe right here. So it's kind of like regular padding in here, and it just works really well. Zero issues with heel hold on the run. Just perfect fit, perfect heel hold for me. Up front, take a look at the difference with the tongue here. I was talking about this, kind of like a poofy mesh, just like regular old padding. You have a standard gusset tongue here. Have some perforations here, a little bit of stretch. It doesn't go all the way down to the front, so you don't have an interior booty, just the mesh all around the foot here. But even though this tongue is kind of, I guess you would say, thick and padded, it does feel pretty light here. It doesn't seem like it's a lot of weight. Compared to this one here, it wraps more around the foot. You have a longer gusset here, even with an interior booty pretty much all the way up to the front of the foot here. And it's just, again, I'm not trying to harp on it, but just a not a good tongue here. This one, go with the regular stuff, regular padding. It looks kind of, dare I say, cheap. I mean, it is $100 cheaper, so it works. What are you gonna say about that? Another change they call out in the technical materials is the engineered mesh here. I believe in version 3 they had some TPU overlays, certainly around the toe box, and I think around the edges of the shoe here. Again, that shoe wasn't available in the US. Similar to the TPU toe cap you see over here, they've eliminated that here, supposedly to save weight. And they said that they've added kind of the structure and the foothold of it into the mesh itself, as opposed to using those plasticky overlays. And that's said to save some weight there. They did call out that they have a 10% improvement in abrasion resistance, because that probably is something you might wonder about. If you're removing this plasticky TPU overlays, is that gonna be a hindrance in terms of durability with this more mesh upper all the way around the toe box? So they do call out that there's a 10% improvement, so you could take that for what you will. Grabbing one of these Merrell shoes here, you have a similar kind of heel height here. I believe, I think, I'm not sure, 42 I said on the heel here, so a little taller here. But again, this is another one where you don't need to come that high here. It doesn't really do anything. Similar kind of padding along the interior in terms of it being a taller ring of padding all around, U-shaped, not just the sides bolsters that some shoes tend to have. Wraps all the way around here. Good heel hold in this shoe. Matrix upper. Well, let's grab this one, take a look. The ground platform I thought was kind of similar. The foot shape of the upper itself is the same, but the platform, it tends to flare out a little bit with the Merrell here. So The platform on this one is a little bit wider than it is over here. This one, you can tell there's not too much difference between the heel and the forefoot. I will have to measure that out, but you can kind of see here a little bit of flare out here, so perhaps a little more stability, but it is a different geometry. I find in this Merrell, you got that rocker up here, very thick, and then it kind of, you want to roll off the toe there. Ultra Glide 4 here, more of a steady rocker. I feel like it starts further back and it's just more gradual, kind of a smoother ride here, whereas this one you're kind of like, it feels like more cushion because it probably is more cushion, but then you got that toe off there, whereas this one you feel like you're just kind of rolling more steadily here. Really like the ride of this shoe. So this is going to be a solid daily trainer option. I was not feeling so good in terms of my little bit of a back injury at the start of this run, but I ended up going for over 7 miles, a little more than an hour, and I actually felt really great, really smooth on the run. And this is one of the more comfortable daily trainers that I've run in a while. I think it's definitely certainly a rival to this Merrell. It's certainly a cheaper price. I think it's a better shoe than this S-Lab version. I'm looking forward to testing version 2, of course, but I would definitely pick this one over this one under pretty much any circumstances. Brought this one out here just to show the Matrix upper. Wondering if version 2 is going to have more width. I don't know if with the platform, if it will come down to the upper, because this is quite a wide and comfortable upper here with the S-Lab Genesis. Curious to see how that is going to feel on this platform here. Anyway, in the meantime, if you want to try the platform, maybe you're interested about, there's relief spheres here. This would be a good starting point, I would think. Instead of dropping $250 on an S-Lab version, you want to see how this might feel on your foot and not have to worry about any issues with the upper. Great daily training shoe. Very comfortable on foot. Definitely a good place to start. Salomon 2026, starting off pretty strong here. Looking forward to testing more of their gravel options. Of course, updated Genesis models. I believe they have some type of top secret gravel race shoe, and also an S-Lab Genesis too. So a lot to look forward to in 2026 from Salomon.